initial podcast. We're going to call it Bank on It from Bank 253. A little background on how we came to decide to do this podcast. Me and Wes one day was just talking like we always do at lunch and had an idea for a podcast. So we figured we'd just kind of test the waters and see if we can do one ourselves. I'm Randy White from the News Express. I've been at the News Express 13 years now. Now, Wes, you can give your introduction. So,
Wes Hutchison. I'm the general manager of Bank 253. Just a common sports observer with the expert in the area to give you some marginal advice on gambling and or high school football. Just all the opinions that we have that we talk about on a daily basis. We figured it would be a fun thing to do, and here we are.
Yeah, we'll see. It gives the little kids. We'll add in some interviews and things like that with some players and coaches as we go along. But for the intro, we'll just the main topic today is high school football. Playoffs start Friday, so just kind of look at some of the matchups and what are you thinking about high school playoffs, Wes?
Big games all across the board. I mean, first week of the high school playoffs. I mean, Pikeville, Pineville. I mean, you've got some powerhouses out there. Definitely. I mean, who would you say, just looking at this for the first time, is your favorite just to come out of the whole thing?
Out of the whole thing, I mean, there's two teams that really jump off at you. Just in the western side, it's Beechwood. I mean, until somebody beats Beechwood, they're the favorite. And then on the eastern side, I think Pikeville's speed kind of would put them apart from some of the teams in the eastern. But anything can happen in these Class A playoffs, and anything usually does happen. I mean, last year Pikeville kind of came out of nowhere. They were, one of the teams not really looking to make a run. They make it all the way to the state semifinals. That whole team is back, and they've had a great regular season. They got speed all over the field, athletes everywhere. But then again, you look in their same district. You look at Hazard right there. Hazard's got size up front. They've been banged up all year, but they've had a tough schedule. And Coach Mark Dixon will have those guys ready to go. I would say Skylar Pelfrey's been sitting out a few games. He's at 800 yards on the season. He's probably missed 2 or 3 games here lately. So Hazard's another team that can make some noise. But then again, you look at the other side of the brackets down there, and you've got Raceland and you've got Paintsville. Paintsville is they took a beating by Pikeville early on. I wouldn't say a beating, but they suffered probably a 3 touchdown loss by Pikeville earlier. Really wasn't close, but after that game, Paintsville really came on. I mean, Joe Chirico, he always has that team ready to roll. Last year, they were one of the favorites and got upset by Raceland in the playoffs. So, Raceland's another team you have to look out for. And then the other team that we haven't even mentioned, the other 1 seed right there, is Williamsburg. I mean, Williamsburg is going in as 1 seed, and nobody's really talking about it because that possible second round matchup with Hazard there is going to be a dandy little game, and it should be real fun. Anything can happen in that side of the bracket. I mean, and then we look at Phelps down there, and Phelps and Lynn Camp. Lynn Camp, they faced off each other last year. I think Lynn Camp beat them 32-26. David Jones keeps getting this team better and better. But then you look at Lynn Camp, they only have 1 loss on the season. I mean, they've played some pretty good teams, and it's at Lynn Camp. So the question is, can Phelps take that long bus ride? They'll be ready. But this year they know what to expect. The biggest thing for Phelps is they got a kid by the name of Dominic Francis, a little running back sophomore. So if he will set the tone in my previews coming out tomorrow in the News Express, just kind of look at that and see what to expect from Francis. Anything else you got to ask about the Class A?
No, I mean gritty teams in the Class A this year. I mean, if you had to pick one side of the bracket for who got the best draw, who would you say?
Absolutely, Beechwood. Beechwood is on their side of the bracket. They're the class of the class out there. They're always in the mix out there. Defending state champions. I mean, they won in a shutout last year against Raceland. I think it was 41-0 in the championship game. So Beechwood is the clear-cut favorite until somebody beats them. But Campbellsville's had a really good year as well.
So if there's anybody out there that could really dethrone Beechwood, you like Campbellsville?
On that side of the bracket, yes. But when it gets, I think their real challenge is going to be in the championship game. And just looking at all the other teams, speed is a killer in high school football. And I think that Pikeville has the most speed. I mean, just look at some of the kids they got. Connor Roberts is thrown for 1,400 yards already this season. He's probably rushed for right around 1,000. You got Jackson Hensley, who's got speed for days, one of the top receivers. You can give him the ball any number of ways, and he can make plays. Seth Pugh is another kid for Pikeville who makes plays. Christian Bilter on both sides of the ball. I think he's got 5 picks. I think he leads them in receiving with 20-plus catches. The kid can play. I mean, Pikeville's just got speed all over, and it's not just on offense. Jesse Sparks, defensive end, and he can line up in the backfield too and run the ball. So I mean, last week against who they end the season with, Tulsa, he was their top running back last week. So I mean, Pikeville's got speed everywhere, and they're experienced, and they have a lot of young talent to go with that. I mean, even their young backups, Isaac McNamee's probably thrown for 300 or 400 yards already,
Wow.
in just a backup role. So Pikeville's got a lot of weapons, but their one big key that might be the thing is the production from the running back standpoint, because it's up and down. I mean, Zach Roberts is a really good running back, but sometimes he gets taken out of the game for whatever reason. So
Loaded backfield for Pikeville for sure. Let's see. He is going to edit this, right?
yeah,
This will be edited, so we don't have to like smooth transitions. Aren't that big of a deal? Okay. I mean, what about Double A? Do you want to move on
yeah,
to
we'll go to
Double A?
Double A next. I mean, Double A is one of the toughest classes in the state. I mean, and it's the cross district with Shelby Valley. It's that district with Somerset, Danville, Lexington Christian, and Middlesboro. Middlesboro being the worst out of the bunch. Only one win on the season. They get Shelby Valley. Shelby Valley 9-1 coming into the playoffs. Got one of the top running backs in the state in Seth Johnson. Seth Johnson is he's almost at 2,000 yards. He should get there at some point in this game if he has a good game. Seth Johnson he leads the state in average rushing yards per game. He's not officially ranked by KHSA because you got to have a 9-game minimum. He's played in 8 games, so he's at 8 games and he's 1,800 yards, probably about 1,850 yards right around that area. So Seth Johnson, the speed, that's one of the he is the speed in the Shelby Valley backfield. I mean, the kid comes out when he touches the ball, he hits a whole 100 miles an hour. I've never seen a kid hit a hole quicker than Seth Johnson. So when you're talking about Shelby Valley early on, you're really talking about how good can Seth Johnson be, because he's going to have to lead them. He's the senior, but then it's not a one-man team. They got a kid by the name of Dalton Mead he's a do-it-all, defense, offense, everything. He's probably rushed for around 800 yards, leads them in receiving, probably added another 200 there, and then he's probably closing in on 100 tackles on defense and with some interceptions. So the kid can do it all there. And then up front, I mean, when you talk about Shelby Valley, Peyton Blackburn, I think he's a junior this year. He's probably got some D1 offers on the table the next year. So big lineman, he can play both ways. He really makes an impact. The question about Shelby Valley though, that after you get past Middlesboro, and more than likely they'll probably play Lexington Christian in that second round. The question that most people are going to have about Shelby Valley is the strength of schedule.
Yeah.
They've got one loss in the season. They've had one early contest, which was the first week of the season against Pike Central, and then after that, they've kind of really steamrolled teams. Won every game they should. So sometimes that's a good thing because you're going in confident, healthy, and all that. But again, when you get in the playoffs, you want to be battle tested.
Right.
So that's the one question that Shelby Valley is going to have to face, and I'm sure everybody around the area would say that's their biggest thing.
So in Double A, do you see a lot of the same parity as you do in Single A, or is there
well, the Double A, the parity is not there. I mean, you got really, really good teams, and they cross district. So that cross district that Shelby Valley's in, Somerset and Danville, they're probably going to meet in the second round.
Okay.
Somerset has built their whole team the last few years trying to beat a Danville. So they're defensive oriented. So they're just loaded. They're pretty good on offense, but when it really comes to Somerset, you think about the defense, and those guys get after it because they've had to the last 2 years. They've had to go against that speed that Danville always has. Van Cleet last year, who graduated for Danville, was probably one of the fastest kids I've ever seen play in a game.
Wow.
I mean, he kind of dominated to a state championship by himself, and so Somerset's kind of been built to beat a Danville. And now that Danville's down, look for them on that other side to be really good. And then LCA every year, they can come up here and lose to Pikeville, and we get to see them.
Yeah.
But that's not the same team as week one. So
well, and I would think that that's the same with just about every team in the playoffs. Is teams that you faced earlier in the season, those teams are very different.
Absolutely.
As you enter the playoffs. As far as players to watch out for in 2A, other than who you mentioned at Shelby Valley.
Well, I'm not up on as many of the other players just single handed. I know Somerset. I can't remember his name off my top of my head, but I know Somerset's quarterback is really talented. Kid can play. He puts up big numbers everywhere. If you look up the top side of the bracket, Mayfield and Old Cath are two of the teams that Owensboro Catholic are two of the teams that people really look on. Probably the favorites up there to come out, but once you get to that Final Four, I mean, anything can happen in that 2A. I mean, you got Christian Academy of Louisville and DeSales possibly meeting in that second or third round, I think. And then the winner of that will play Somerset in the 2A semi-state.
Well, just going back to single A, are there any players in single A that you see taking that next step, going into college, and maybe making some noise? Guys whose names we'll hear down the road.
2A, I mean, there's any number of guys who could have the chance. I mean, Bailey Blair is a kid at Hazard this year, the quarterback. He's really good. I don't know if he could play the quarterback position at the next level. He's kind of small, but I mean, he's very wiry, quick, can throw the ball, run the ball. Then on Hazard, you got Skylar Pelfrey, who's kind of came out of nowhere this year, and he runs the ball. His Pikeville had over 200 yards rushing. Then you go down to Paintsville. I mean, they got the Allens. I mean, you got Jalen Allen, who's probably a high-level prospect for the college ranks. So
Class 3A, I'm sure, as always, the traditional powerhouses like Belfry. But is there anybody else that you really like coming out of this class?
Yeah, Boyle County is the defending state champion. So, I mean, until somebody beats them, Boyle County is always going to be one of those teams that everybody's going to look to.
Right.
They're built for a playoff team. I mean, pretty much returned most of that team from last year. But then you on this side of the state, we'll look at the eastern side of the state because we know that side of the state a little better. Corbin is always in the mix. Dudley Hilton at Bell County's got Bell County playing really well. Breathitt's had a rebound this year. I mean, Lexington Catholics are always going to be in the mix. And Belfry's going to be right there with everybody else. Last year, Belfry got cross-district with Louisville Central's district. This year, they've got cross-district with Boyle County. So that's going to be the matchup. Last year, Belfry snapped an 8-year streak of going to the state championship when they got cross-district with Louisville Central. Louisville Central makes it, to Corbin the next week. Corbin beats them, faces Boyle County in the state championship. Boyle County beats them pretty easily. Wow. And now Boyle County's on this side of the state. So the question is, can anybody knock Boyle County from the throne?
Right. And just with Belfry, with Bell County playing as well as they are, Corbin, you think any of these teams could give Boyle a run for their money?
Oh, absolutely.
If they meet up.
Absolutely. The thing about Belfry is the style of play they play, they're going to be hard, physical. It's going to all start at the line. So with the running game they have and the defense they have on both sides of the ball, it all starts up front. Offensive line, defensive line. If Belfry can control that line, it doesn't matter who they're playing, they can win the game. Yeah. I mean, those guys are ready to go. Philip Highwood has that system down. All the guys buy into it. Then you look at the running backs. A lot of these guys are young kids. Isaac Dixon, his first time really playing, the only guy back on that offense that really had a lot of experience last year was Kevin Browning, the quarterback. Avery Browning, Kevin Browning, he's listed both ways. I've seen his name, either way. So, I mean, Belfry has some talent. They have some speed, too, with Ben Bentley and Brett Coleman back there in the backfield as well. And then on their defensive side, you got Grayson Cook, just a number of other guys on the defensive end side. I mean, they get after you. I mean,
unbelievable. After all these years, Belfry just plugging along every single year.
You could be meeting for a region championship, and whoever comes out of that could be your next state championship. Yeah. I mean, and it's the good thing about that is it's going to be at Belfry, and Belfry always brings crowds. They always have are ready to go at home. They have a little extra excitement there. I mean, and this year as long as they're winning until that Corbin game, they will be at home. So.
Well, I mean, much like I guess you see in college football, it's all about who gets hot at the right time.
Absolutely. And just speaking of that, Dudley Hilton came out of retirement. I mean, he came out of retirement and went to UPike, and then a couple of years later, he finds himself back at Bell. And it took him a couple of years, but right now they're right back in the mix that win their district. And that matchup with Corbin, anything could go there. I mean, they play a similar style to Belfry, like to run the ball, pound the ball, be physical up front. So Bell County right there is a team to watch. But Corbin, the last 3 or 4 years, Corbin has turned into an offensive juggernaut, and as long as they're putting up points, it's going to be hard to stop Corbin. Anything else in that 3A? Because if you look up at the top, Central's probably the team to beat out of the top side of the bracket. Then I would say them and E-Town and Wagner are some of the top teams up there.
Where is Wagner?
They're a Louisville school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of Louisville schools in 3A.
And a lot of these teams are like these Louisville teams up top. They're always dangerous because they don't just play 3A schedule. They'll play up and they'll play your St. X's. They'll play your Males, your DuPont Manuals.
Yeah.
So
they're seeing the next level of competition.
Yeah, and Central, it's not uncommon to see Central to go up and beat one of those teams. I think they've played Trinity or St. X really well this year. So, Central's always going to be tough, always loaded with athletes. Exciting style of football, too. They'll throw a little bit more, but it's a physical style. It's a little different than your Belfry or Boyd County. It's a little different than the Mountain style, but it's still physical and it's quick, and they're loaded with athletes.
Well, that's definitely fun to watch. And you know as well as I do. Teams have really trended more toward the spread, spread them out, slinging around kind of thing. But you see, it seems like in this area, like you still see a lot of the teams running the ball way more than maybe in central and western part.
Yeah, mountain football is known for be that tough physical style, and once we get up to 4A and talk about 4A football, and we can transition that.
Guys going
Johnson
both ways
Central,
too.
Yeah. Smaller schools around here, the guys got to play both ways, especially Class A, 2A. But even at Johnson Central, which we're getting ready to start talking about 4A, Johnson Central has guys play every side of the ball. So but speaking of that tough, hard-nosed football style, Johnson Central, they played Belfry last week, and it's just a hard-hitting game. Johnson Central came out with a 34-21 win going into the playoffs. Those teams like to play that game to get that last tough contest going into the playoffs, so they can be tough and battle tested. And then you look at this side. Central, the 4A is probably not as loaded as some of the other ones, but your top end teams are really good.
You got your clear favorites.
You got your Franklin Simpsons, your Moores, Ashland Blazer. Franklin County. They always put up points. So that 4A is going to be really interesting. Johnson Central is probably one of the favorites to come out of their side of the bracket and go back. Played in the last 3 state championship games. They fell short last year. Joe Jackson, their leading running back, tore his knee up in the first game last year, missed that whole season. Wow. They still make it to state championship, but they followed Franklin Simpson. Joe Jackson's back this year for his senior year. He started out a little bit slow, but now he's right around 1,500 yards rushing on the year. Kind of came back into form. And on top of that, they've got Riley Priest, a third-year starting quarterback, going into this is his junior year. Yeah. So he's been there. He's battle-tested. He's played in the state championship his whole high school career. He's ended it at the state championship game 1-1. So the kid's ready to go. Just a hard-hitting style, very similar to Belfry, Jim Matney. It's just that tough mountain football.
Well, you love to see that. Is there a team that you feel like can make some noise as far as maybe not one of the up top clear favorites? Is there a team you think can shuffle or make a little bit of noise, maybe first, second round?
Well, I think Ashland is probably one of those that's probably in that upper tier, but it's probably not getting as much of because they're only lost on the years as Johnson Central.
Right.
They split last year. They beat Johnson Central in the regular season last year, lose to them in the playoffs. Now, the same district, not a lot of people are talking about Ashland, but they have a quarterback. His last name's Ratliff. Kid can play. So right there's a possible matchup there. They can make some noise. And then you got your Knox Central with the X, not, but that they can make some noise as well. And then you look on the upper bracket. A team that with the top seed is up there is Madisonville North Hopkins, and not a lot of people are talking about that. And they got a 1 side. They just happen to probably will be facing off Franklin Simpson in that third round if they get there. So it's all about matchups. But at the 4A, I'd say you probably have 4 clear-cut favorites. And if I were ranking them, I would say Franklin Simpson, Moore, Johnson Central, and Ashland, and then I would have Franklin County in there somewhere as well. So,
all right, 5A.
Yeah, we'll move on to 5A now. So
now 5A.
We don't really have a whole lot of coverage. Our coverage, our team. Lecture Central. Our one lone one that we cover is Perry Central. Uh, they've got a tough first round matchup with Southwestern. The two faced off last year. Southwestern beat them in the first round as well. Perry Central's going in 8-2 though as
Yeah.
a 3 seed. So and they got one of the top running backs in the he's number 2 overall in overall rushing in the state is Jaden Neese. He's already got around 2,300 yards, around 31 touchdowns. So the kid is right there. And then you look at some of the stats that Perry Central puts up. They lead the state in any class in sacks. They're sitting at 64 sacks as a team right now. I got 2 guys with over 10 sacks. Got another one sitting 9 to 5. Jake Brown's one of those guys with over 10 sacks. He's got 150, right around 150 tackles, something crazy like that. So Perry Central, they've got a lot of stats that jump out at you.
Gritty Perry Central.
But I mean, once you get in there, Southwestern is always tough. And then Lecture Central, I mean, they've got a tough draw. If they win that first round, they're staring at Pulaski County, who's always in the mix in that 5A. And then on the bottom side down there with Southwestern and Perry Central, you got Harlan County. Oh, they run that tough physical style again. So, and then on the top side is usually where you get your speed. You get your Bowling Greens, your South Warrens. I mean, Fern Creek's had a really good year. Oldham County or South Oldham and Oldham County both have had a really good year. So that top side always is a counter. I mean, it's usually a lot of speed. The last few years, Pulaski and some of the other teams from this area have been able to counter that, but I'm not sure that they can counter that speed on the top side this
just
year.
Looking at these records, I mean, you got your number 1 seed with 8-2 record.
Yeah.
Number 2 seed 8-2. I mean, they beat up on each other a lot during the regular season. It looks like you don't have any undefeated teams in 5A.
Yeah, and Covenant Catholic is a team that we haven't talked about. They've been right up there near the top in those rankings all year as well. So 5A is going to be interesting as well. To me, though, if you want to move on to 6A, is when it gets really interesting this year. I mean, you look at the records, and the things that stick out is Trinity and St. X are always in the mix. But you look at their records, and they're not what they used to be.
No.
These are teams that are used to be ranked nationally or ranked as some of the, but they always play these tough national schedules outside state opponents.
Right.
But once they get in district play, I mean, you look at St. X, they come find a way to win that district, and I think they only got 4 wins.
Yeah, 4 and 6.
Yeah, I mean,
as the 1 seed.
Yeah, so and then Trinity's right there as well. I think one of their only district loss is to St. X, or well, not their district loss, but one of the regular season losses. But I mean, you look at there, and that 6A is very interesting. I mean, and then down the bottom side of that bracket, Frederick Douglass is school in its 2nd year.
Yeah.
And they have been loaded all year. They got a transfer in from not Central, Cameron Jones, who's just been lighting it up at the quarterback position. At one point this year, he was completing around 80% of his passes. I think he's probably closing in on 2,500 yards passing this year. He's a big kid, 6'7". I mean, definitely can turn some heads, got some talent, big arm. Accurate, and he's got weapons to work with there at Frederick Douglass.
Yeah, that's insane. Frederick Douglass, 2nd year.
Yeah. So.
2nd year school, the number 2 seed in 6A, which is just a powerhouse.
Yeah, and then we didn't even talk about Male, and Male and St. X and Trinity are usually your 3 favorites, and Scott County is usually one of the other favorites. But now it seems like Frederick Douglass may have kind of taken over as one of those favorites from Scott County, which those two could meet up there early on in the playoffs, and it could be very interesting there. So that 6A is going to be very interesting. But I would say look for your St. X's, your Trinities, and Frederick Douglass will be coming out. I would imagine St. X is they've hired Bowling Green's former Bowling Green coach Kevin Wallace. I think this is his 1st or 2nd year there, and that team's on the upswing. So this is one of those teams I would really look out for in 6A.
Awesome. The Kentucky Wildcats.
Yes.
Football. Number 9 in the first college football playoff ranking.
It's almost surreal to even say.
I couldn't believe it when I saw it last night. It made me happy and you're the same as me.
Yeah.
Kentucky fan, Bengals fan, been long suffering.
Absolutely.
Long suffering.
My whole life.
We deserve this. We need to enjoy this week. Going into a huge game. Georgia this week.
And right there, it could be their first SEC East championship. Who would ever thought at the beginning of the year Kentucky would be playing for SEC? I mean, you have the expectations, you have the optimism, but seeing that offense struggle early in the season, I know, you've talked about it time and time again. I didn't know how they would fare against good competition, they're finding ways to win these close games. Last week,
that is grinding that win out to the last minute. I mean, that's the kind of thing you like to see, though. You like to see them struggle, come back, and pull a game like that out on the road. Missouri, not an easy place to play.
No, not at all.
Not an easy place to play, Missouri.
And how many times in years before has Kentucky been on the receiving end of those losses?
All the time.
Look at the Tennessee game a few years ago, the Florida game a few years ago. I mean,
we have had our hearts broken by them so many times. Yeah. We keep coming back. We deserve a week like this where, listen, like you said, tempered expectations. Not trying to go crazy here. Kentucky wins out. College football playoff. I don't want to say anything too crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't want to go.
Got to get past Georgia before I would even consider that.
That's a tough
Georgia
win.
is Georgia.
But I don't feel like this is one of those years where it's just like a foregone conclusion that Kentucky's going to lose this game.
Being at home, Kroger Field, Commonwealth Stadium, whatever you want to call it.
Which is going to be
insane.
Out of control
insane.
For that game that night. It's going to be electric atmosphere. Georgia's going to come in and, look, I feel like a lot of people are looking at Georgia like last year's Georgia. This isn't Georgia from last year. Kentucky can beat this team. Unbelievable defense. I never saw Kentucky's defense being.
It's one of the best defenses in the country. I don't think anybody can argue. They're up there with your LSU's, your Alabamas. I mean, some of the top-notch defenses up there. We don't really have any weaknesses on defense. We're pretty solid all across the board. Our struggles, though, and the thing that kind of tempers me a little bit going into this Georgia game is that offense.
Yeah.
I mean, if we get down more than a touchdown or two, we have to have miracles like we did last week to come back and win. I mean, the pass game is just it's our weakness on the team. I mean, our run game is phenomenal.
Yeah, we're a passing game away this year from being a legitimate national contender.
Absolutely.
Which we, obviously they're in the top 10, so technically they're a contender. We're a passing game away from being a really, really good team.
Yeah, absolutely,
really good team.
I mean, we get a pass game that makes us a complete team. We're right there with anybody. I mean, I mean. Who else is complete this year in college football besides Alabama? I mean, to me, that's the only complete team that I see.
Yeah.
Clemson would be the second, and Clemson's had their ups and downs as well. They had to figure it out early on.
Playing with a freshman quarterback. I mean, they've got a dominant front four, but they're figuring things out like everybody else. It's just really nice to see Kentucky going into some of these games and actually feeling like in your heart as a fan that we have a chance to win this.
Oh, absolutely.
I can't tell you the last time we went into a Georgia game and I was like, yeah, I feel good about this.
I mean, I don't think any. I mean, just look at the line movement. So opens up at 12.5.
Yeah.
Goes down to 9.5, and then this morning I looked, it was at 9.
Yeah.
So it keeps moving down. So the trend right now for people betting this line and in Vegas is Kentucky's a better shot than you think that they maybe should be. I mean, 12.5 at home is a lot.
Yeah.
Now, that line's going down. That's showing people are kind of respecting what this team has been able to do so far. And the other thing about this team that we have to talk about too, having a kid from our coverage area on the team, Cash Daniel. I mean, I think the kid is his personality's kind of overwhelmed people. He's kind of taken this by storm. His face was up on the billboard in Times Square the other day. So
specific shout out to Cash Daniel
absolutely.
Coming out with the club on his arm last week, which was just.
I mean,
kid's a warrior.
I mean, and after he injured his hand, I don't want to say broke, but that was his words. But he says he's not missing a down. I mean, that's just the mindset that this team has. I mean, and if you really look, they've all rallied around Stoops as well. I mean, last week when they get that win. Who do they lift up on their shoulders in the locker room?
Yeah, Stoops. And that's the other thing that I feel like, especially Kentucky fans need to look at. Look, when Mark Stoops took this job, the cupboard was bare. There was nothing. Yep. He had nothing in the cupboard.
No, absolutely not.
Built this team from the ground up. Nasty defensive football team. I mean, obviously, we have our troubles with the passing game. I love Terry Wilson. I want to like him even more. He just kills me lollipopping the ball out there sometimes. But you know what? Hey, he threw a game winner. We love Terry Wilson.
In the clutch it counted, that's when he made the throw. So.
And he hangs in there. He kept fighting that game. Listen.
But it would have been easy for him to give up.
Yeah, 100%. And I think most people thought when he threw that last interception that the game was over. Most people thought that game was over. I don't think anybody saw us coming back, getting the ball back, and going down, marching down, scoring finally looking at C.J. Conrad a little more in the red zone.
Yeah, I mean, we've
Get
talked
him
about this
ball.
time and time again.
Yeah.
Who can cover C.J. Conrad on that
Yeah.
seam route?
Get-
I don't know if anybody in the country can.
Yeah, get that stud the ball in the red zone. And, you know, another thing I was thinking about last night was this week with Georgia at Kentucky and then Bama and LSU playing, you could potentially have these games going for SEC Coach of the Year.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Stoops, regardless of the outcome, has to be in the
Yeah.
discussion. I mean, who thought this team would be top 10 at the beginning of the season? I mean, I don't think anybody saw
No.
that coming.
No, not even diehard fans. I mean, I it's beyond my expectations, which most of us at this point, if you've been rooting for UK your whole life, you tend to temper those expectations and try to keep them.
It's always that but
Yeah,
moment, and we usually hit that but moment in the middle of the season where they're playing really well, and then something happens, and then they'll lose a game or two in a row, and then they finish 6, 7, 8 wins, usually 7 wins, go to a bowl game and lose that bowl game. So.
Yeah. Well, I saw a projection earlier that had us playing in the Peach Bowl against Ohio State.
And who would ever thought we would ever be ranked ahead of Ohio State?
Yeah, that was crazy for me to see. That was the thing that jumped right out to me right off the bat, was looking at the playoff ranking, seeing Kentucky above Ohio State, who are just bums, by the way. I can't stand Ohio State, but that's not here. But yeah, seeing Kentucky ranked up above Ohio State was incredible, and I would be okay playing them in a bowl game. I'd feel like I like our chances playing that soft Big Ten schedule. Bring on a Big Ten team in the Peach Bowl. I feel like we can play with anybody.
Oh, I think that defense can hang with anybody. I think that defense is top level.
Yeah, I just feel like Bama's the exception. Right?
Where are you going to be watching that game at Saturday?
I'll be watching it here.
People come out and enjoy the game.
Yeah. You got to come out and watch the game. Come out to Bank. If you want to come out to Bank, come down. We're going to have some drink specials. We got great TVs. There's not a bad seat in the house. And then you might even be able to hear us ramble on about the game. Come say hi. Come have a drink with us. We may be watching it here. I would love to be there and experience it because Krogerville is going to be insane for that game.
Speaking of Kentucky in the top 10, basketball season next week, it really jumps off. Duke coming in at number 4. Just kind of early thoughts about that. I mean, this Kentucky team is loaded, but so is Duke.
The one thing that kills me, you hate to see the 9:30 tip-off. Yeah. You hate to see it. On a weekday, I don't want any part of the 9:30 tip-off. That means that game's not going to actually tip off till about 10:15.
Yeah.
That's a little late for a week. Let us get who plays in the first game?
Michigan State and Kansas.
Yeah. Give us that time slot.
2 other top 10 teams.
That's another. This is getting to the whole conspiracy of ESPN hating on UK. Give us that time slot, ESPN. We want that 7:30 time slot. But I mean,
most people want that primetime game. Though there's more eyes on it. But I get your point.
Yeah, you hate to see that 9:30. You hate to see that 9:30 tip off. But I mean, at this point in the year, though, we can't wait for basketball to start.
Yeah, and how many years before have you already heard Kentucky's going to win a national title? I can't wait to basketball. Football is just kind of an afterthought.
It's the exact
now,
opposite.
I've not really heard anybody even mention this game next week. And, in previous years, 2 months ago, we would have heard people talk about it. Yeah, we've had Big Blue Madness and the open blue-white scrimmage and the Transylvania scrimmage or whatever you want to call it, exhibition game.
Well,
but nobody's really talking about this basketball team yet, and that's a good sign.
In years past, we're moving on to basketball week 4, week 5 of the college football season. So it's an awesome time to be a sports fan. I mean, you got that going on. Kentucky about to tip off. Kentucky football really getting in there. NFL. I mean, it's just a great time to really be knee deep in the whole sports thing. And Kentucky basketball is just, I mean, it's good to see those expectations because the 40-0 talk from a few years ago, I hated it. Hated everything about that. Yeah. So it's good to see, they're kind of maybe not flying under the radar, but people aren't being crazy with the expectation.
But the thing about this year too is we got some guys who've returned to the team. They kind of know what it's about. They know what the hype's about. So it might not bother these guys as much, and it can take some of that pressure off those freshmen. I mean, to me, the biggest thing with this team is how you going to get everybody on the court. Like setting rotations. Does it go 5 in, 5 out? Does he have a set time limit? Does he just try to mix and match? I mean,
Yeah.
it's going to be fun to see
They go
this
platoon
team.
again.
It's going to be fun to see how this team works that out. I mean, talent everywhere. That's a great problem to have.
Yeah. And, you got some older guys on the team, like you said, Reed Travis transferring over from Stanford. Huge. I think he's about 28 years old. No, he's a 4-year. He's 23.
Yeah.
That's old. I mean, on UK's basketball team,
transfer,
that's a senior citizen on UK's team. So, I mean, listen, this could really be a fun transition year from Kentucky football into Kentucky basketball. And, this draft class is going to be playing this year, the one and done year. This class of freshmen coming in just across the board.
Yeah, and we got everything. We got shooters. We got guys who can get up and down the court. We got 3-point guards. We've got ball handling all over the place. Shooters, inside play. PJ Washington's back. Nick Richards is back. Who last year I wasn't a huge fan of. If you remember me talking about Nick Richards
later in the year.
Yeah, he showed signs, but this team is loaded from head to toe. So.
Yeah, there's only one ball. It'll be interesting to see what Cal does with this. I'm sure, like you said, that's the best problem to have is to have too much talent. But this team, top to bottom, seems absolutely stacked. It's going to be fun to see how Cal kind of works all these guys into the rotation. How many years ago was that we did the platoon?
That's probably been 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, that's been a few years ago. So I know, toward the end of the year, he wasn't the biggest fan of it. And I do remember Cal saying he wasn't going to go back to that. But listen, you got 10, 11 kids on your roster that can play. What do you do?
Yeah, you got to find ways for them to play.
But that's a good thing.
His biggest thing is going to have these guys buying into the team concept and not being unselfish, which that's been Cal's MO since he's been at Kentucky. He's getting guys to buy in and not be about me.
Right.
And, Devin Booker, he can use that kid as the prime example. Anytime he wants to teach that concept, dude never even started. Now he's one of the top players in the NBA. He's got the background to do that.
Well, and Cal's shown with a lot of these guys just the way that he's managed these stars that have come through there, and shown that it's not about necessarily how many points per game you're averaging, but the scouts are going to see talent regardless.
Yeah.
And Anthony Davis too. I don't even think he averaged double figures in points, but he was the number 1 overall pick in the draft. So I think Cal's written kind of a new blueprint, and you see all the other coaches following suit. Coach K's doing it. Every successful program in the country, you look up and down the top 10, everybody's kind of copying what Cal did at Kentucky, and just
Well, look at Duke with Barrett and Williamson, Zion Williamson coming in this year. They're loaded with freshman talent. Their freshman talent might be ahead of Kentucky's this year. So, Duke has followed suit to what Cal kind of laid out there. But if you want to start talking about, local basketball, UPike Friday night and Saturday night, they're hosting the Appalachian Wireless Classic over the Expo Center. They kicked off last week with a couple big wins. Coach Kelly Wells has got those guys playing well. Have a couple injuries to some of the top returners in Jordan Perry and Chase Parsley. But one of the other returners, Javion Delo Cruz, had a career high last week. Kids playing excellent basketball. That'd be going on at the Expo Friday and Saturday. If you don't want to watch some playoff football, maybe you want to go out and watch some high school. Some college basketball. And before high school kicks off, you got a month until high school kicks off. So nobody better in the country in the NAIA than UPike.
Yeah, and UPike, the NAIA powerhouse, and you like to see a lot more people come out and see the kind of talent that Kelly Wells puts together year in year out over here. I think it's kind of I know lots of people kind of go out, but you like to see the Expo Center packed out because those guys put on a show, and it's good basketball. Yeah, he's got them playing good basketball, man, and it's something for I think the community can sometimes kind of sleep on. As how much talent Kelly Wells.
All you have to do is just look at the record of Kelly Wells. It speaks for itself. They're in the national championship tournament almost every year out in Kansas City. So, they're going to be prepared, ready to go. And then this weekend you got UPike football as well. They're on the road at Bluefield. Coach Al Holland can get those guys to their 6th win. Start off to a slow beginning this year, and they've kind of rebounded. Played well last week against number 3 Reinhardt in the country. They've got a chance to finish second in their division down there. UPike's playing really well right now, and one of the guys leading the way on offense is Exandre Willis. He's from Belfry, leading running back. So they've got a lot of local kids on the team. Come out and see them. They'll have one more home game left after the Bluefield game. So UPike football is going to be a busy weekend.
Gotten better each week.
Yeah. And they suffered. Brown, I can't remember his first name now off the top of my head, but their best defensive player, the safety, he got hurt first game of the season, and that took them a while to rebound from that. And that defense has been pretty good all season, losing one of their best players.
Well, you definitely look forward to seeing UPike football and basketball make a run in these tournaments and really go out there and put in work. And it's definitely awesome to see guys from the area go and show out for UPike on the next level. That's awesome to see.
Anything else from NFL and NBA? What's going on that you want to talk about?
Jeez. Yeah, I mean,
trade deadline stuff.
Trade deadline was yesterday, so some guys moving around big time. NFL trade deadline stuff. Lots of big names moving around yesterday. I really like what the Houston Texans did, picking up Demaryius Thomas from the Broncos. I mean, they kind of adding to that receiver. They lost Will Fuller last week. I think he tore his ACL, so you put a guy like Demaryius Thomas who can still play. On the other side of the field is DeAndre Hopkins, who is probably the best receiver in the league. Did you see the catch he made?
Oh insane. On his butt. Yeah. I mean,
pinned it to his hamstring.
You're always going to get that discussion. Antonio Brown, Julio Jones, but the name that nobody ever really talks about is DeAndre Hopkins, and that dude is lighting it up. I mean, who can cover him in the NFL? I don't think anybody can cover him one-on-one. I don't even know if you can cover him in cover twos and brackets now. So that guy is just finding ways to get open, and he's helping Deshaun Watson develop. I mean, a lot of people, were questioning, could Deshaun Watson get back to form after that injury last year? With DeAndre Hopkins playing the way he is, that makes things a lot easier.
Yeah, look, DeAndre Hopkins up until last year had nobody at quarterback. Yeah. Putting up numbers with, Tom Savage at quarterback or, Case Keenum at quarterback, putting up big numbers with those guys at quarterback. So, I mean, the fact that now he's got a guy like Deshaun Watson, who they got to protect, by the way. He's been taking just a beating in some of these games this year. But he's, you got a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. You put Demaryius Thomas next to him now. I mean, who knows what they can do going forward as long as they can keep Deshaun Watson on two legs out there. My God, he has just absolutely been killed this year. I guess the other big one was who was it? It was Demaryius Thomas, and then
I can't remember the other big one.
Let me pull it up on my phone here.
We were looking at it yesterday.
Yeah, Ty Montgomery going to the Ravens. Is that
to the Ravens? Well, I think they gave up a 4th-round pick for him, 5th-round pick.
Yeah, I didn't. You know what? I didn't see what the Broncos gave for
4th round.
Was it just 4th round?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty good. Look, Demaryius Thomas can still play. I mean, I think a lot of people probably argue that maybe he's a couple years maybe past his prime. The guy can still go up and get the ball.
I mean, there's a difference with Case Keenum there in that offense. I mean, nothing against Case Keenum. He's a decent quarterback, but he's not the next level. He's not going to make any receiver or break them. I mean, last year his stats kind of were kind of inflated with Thielen and Diggs. So,
not to mention the best defense in the league across from. I guess the small one's Dante Fowler going to the Rams. Which the Rams is getting a little bit richer on their defense.
Yeah, and their defense coming into the year was supposed to be just completely nasty.
Not made as much noise.
And they've kind of flown under the radar, giving up a lot of points. They've got players. They find ways to win, but it's not like they're stopping anybody.
Yeah, no, I mean they're not. I don't think there's. I feel like the expectation was they were going to be like the 2001 Ravens coming out there. I mean, I don't think they've been that. They've been really good. I mean, I personally thought the Vikings defense was going to be better. The Vikings defense not been that great.
Lost some depth on that defense from last year, and you lose depth in the NFL, you're hurt.
Yeah, you got to have it, and that's I think the main thing that hurt them is they lost that depth, and they can't cycle as many guys in and keep them fresh because that's what it comes down to in the NFL is having fresh legs out there on the field. You got anything
Being
else?
a Bengals fan, surprised no moves made.
Yeah, no.
Probably the best news from a Bengals fan this week is Le'Veon Bell still not playing for the
Le'Veon
Steelers.
Bell is still, stay home, Le'Veon. Let me just speak to Le'Veon directly when I say, Le'Veon, just stay home. Take this year off.
Antonio Brown, he can take a break too if he wants
Yeah,
to.
he can take a break.
He can go home.
Ben Roethlisberger should have packed it in last year. I'm sick of seeing Ben Roethlisberger.
James Conner can follow suit.
That is,
Le'Veon Bell.
I like the way you looked at that. I like that. Stay home, Le'Veon Bell. I agree. Bengals better than I thought this year.
Defense is still the question. If the defense can get it together, we'll be all right. Offense has looked really good this year. I think Joe Mixon kind of emerging in his second year. He can catch.
The young receivers coming out too.
Tyler Boyd really developed. Still the question marks was John Ross.
Yeah, John Ross.
Is he ever going to show up?
I mean, the hype train behind John Ross coming out of the combine running the 4.2 40. I mean, I thought just going on what I was hearing coming out of Bengals camp.
I was excited.
I was loving them drafting John Ross.
And then if you look at who we passed up to pick behind us, Patrick Mahomes.
I mean, that's,
if we could have had that with AJ Green and that big arm, that as a Bengals fan, you get used to that.
Yeah, no, 100%, and definitely you don't anticipate any moves being made at the trade deadline. Hell, I can't remember the last time the Bengals did make a move at the trade deadline. So
it's shocking when we do make moves in the offseason. We made a couple this year to get line play, and that was huge for us because last year that's what killed the Bengals. But defensively, this team's kind of taking a step back.
Yeah, they're not. I mean, they look better at the first.
They have talent everywhere, all over the field. Defensive line is one of the best in football. Good linebackers, good secondary, but it's not. They just can't put it together. They're giving up points, and they're giving up a lot of points.
So basically, what he's saying is everything's par for the course in Bengals world this year. They just, they get your hopes up. I love the way they were playing through 4 weeks of this season, 5 weeks even. They were looking okay. Defense or offense was moving the ball, but
run into Kansas City and
that's it. PTSD probably they're having from Kansas
they were
City
not ready to play in that game at all.
Beat to death.
Not been the same since then. I had to hold on to beat a Tampa Bay team.
Yeah, that was man. At least we have the Cats.
Yeah.
Thank God the Cats are having the season.
Anything else, or you want to wrap this up?
That's all I got.
This is the first edition of what? Take it to the bank.
Take it to the bank.
Anything we said, take it to the bank.
Yeah.